So how big of an impact are you seeing when it comes to these snap lockdowns and just the continued uncertainty around COVID?
Well, what we've seen during the course of the pandemic is getting the priorities right when it comes to healthcare. If you can protect your people, then economic growth and jobs come back. And that's what we've seen in Queensland. We've restored all the jobs we lost during COVID, plus another 85,000. That has led Australia. Our economic growth for the financial year just closed was 13 times more than we anticipated just 6 months ago at 3.25%. So what we do in Queensland is we go hard and we go early. We have short, sharp lockdowns. We've done that on a couple of occasions and we've seen our economy rebound. We think that's the right policy setting for Queensland and for the nation, can I say. And now our economy is roaring back and we're helping the Australian economy recover as a consequence.
Treasurer, I want to get to the biggest risk to the recovery from many economists' points of view, which is, of course, the slow vaccine rollout. Let me just play a comment that we heard from the Queensland Premier yesterday.
I do not think this is the time to risk the safety of our young Australians when the UK will not even allow their under 40s to get the AstraZeneca vaccine.
So this is, of course, over the debate and the changing guidance over the AstraZeneca vaccine for various age groups. And we heard the same recommendation from the Chief Health Officer in Queensland as well, saying that she essentially would rather have an unvaccinated population of under 40s than risk using the Astra shot. Is there a problem here in that people are looking at this as, hospitalisation and death versus the vaccine as opposed to the economic consequences as well versus the vaccine? Because obviously the risk-benefit for Australians is quite different.
Well, we've never seen it as a binary choice. It's not a choice between health and the economy. If you can't get the health piece right, if you can't support and protect the health of your people, then your economy cannot recover. And we've seen that around the world with catastrophic consequences for economies. So we're seeing strong economic recovery. We're seeing in our budget position revenue coming back, which means lower debt, lower deficits. And that's allowed businesses to have confidence in our state and invest. So we do need to get the vaccination piece right. Of course, all the states and territories are in the hands of our federal government. They are the ones securing the supply of vaccine. And we know that AstraZeneca has some problems for people aged under 40. That's just the reality. We have more Pfizer that the federal government has secured only later in the year. And of course, as that's distributed, we'll continue to roll out the vaccine in our state. So we're prioritising that as a government. We've got a state 2.5 times the size of Texas. We're distributing the vaccine from the northern part of our state out to the west into our regional communities, and we're getting good uptake, and we'll continue to support the rollout in the future.
Treasurer, I was so jealous of Heidi last year because you in Australia had barely any infections. But the tables have turned so much this year. I mean, the US completely reopened. We have so many vaccinations. Where did things go wrong for Australia when it comes to the vaccination rollout? I keep hearing you mention the federal government. Is the problem there? Could states have done more?
Well, the reality is it's the supply of the vaccine, Sherry. You can't do anything unless you get the vaccine. And of course, our government, federal government, our national government chose to back AstraZeneca and Pfizer, whereas other jurisdictions effectively spread the risk across a whole range of vaccines. That was the case in the United States and the United Kingdom. We'll have a lot to consider in the future about what we could have done better, but for the time being, they are the two vaccines available in Australia. I think Johnson & Johnson's vaccine might be coming along, as well as Moderna. Once we secure that supply, we'll be able to distribute that. But for all intents and purposes, we are really moving ahead. Our economy has reopened. We've had large sporting events. We had the biggest sporting event in the world in Queensland last year in one of our major rugby league games. So we are opening our economy and we're seeing the positive economic response here in our state. Queenslanders have confidence and that will continue in the future.
You delivered the state budget a few weeks ago with the Delta variant now spreading so fast and with the new lockdowns. Does that change a bit your calculation?
Well, we're in the hands of the virus as the rest of the world is. But what we know in our state is the short, hard, fast response delivers an economic and a social return for our people, and that will continue in the future. We had only 4 infections yesterday. Only 3 were community transmissions. That is a very strong result as a result of the lockdown. And we're a very battle-hardened state. We know how to respond to natural disasters. We know what it is to take the advice of our Chief Health Officer and respond accordingly. And Queenslanders have been magnificent. They've done everything that was asked of them and more. And now we're seeing that strong economic rebound, which is the dividend that's being returned to Queenslanders. And that's a strong message we're sending to everyone around Australia and around the world. We're open for investment and we're the place to be.
How much has the investment and I suppose also the immigration and the labour force outlook changed post-COVID?
Yes, Heidi, there's been a big change. We're leading the nation when it comes to interstate migration. We had the highest net interstate migration last year. About 30,000 people moved from other parts of Australia to Queensland, and over the next 4 years, and these are federal budget numbers, we're going to have about 85,000 people move to Queensland. We welcome that. That's good for our economy. We are a lifestyle superpower. We're a great place to live, but we also have low tax settings. We have a pro-business, pro-investment government, and of course we're backing that up with our own very strong investment, more than $50 billion in infrastructure over the next 4 years that our government alone will be delivering, creating jobs and getting those economic settings right to send the message that our economy is powering ahead, and we want to accelerate that as we accelerate past and through COVID in the next financial year.
The government has committed to a $52 billion infrastructure spending program. Is there scope to increase that, particularly if Brisbane becomes an Olympic host?
Well, that's right. The Olympics is something that's potentially extremely exciting for our state and our nation. We hope later this month we'll get a positive decision. And of course, that's the 10-year horizon for our state, not just to host the greatest and biggest event in the world, let alone the biggest sporting event, but it sets a pathway, a vision for our state, significant investment in infrastructure that will come with that, partnering with the national government, $17 billion at least in economic activity, 120,000 jobs, but also something to aspire to host that big event in our state, something we'd be very proud to do. And so we've got that short and medium term outlook for our state, which is very positive. And then we've got that longer term decade horizon to deliver the Olympics for our state and our nation.